Peace, love, and light, family. Welcome to another Read Book Club discussion. I am your host, your sister, Dr.Maat. I have with me my partner, Brother Everett Winchester. How are you doing tonight, brother?
I'm powerful and feeling great, my sister. I'm just blessed to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. You just had an event in Baltimore about 2 Saturdays ago. Could you briefly tell us about that event and what your upcoming events will be?
Wonderful. Yes, we had a Unity Ceasefire event at the TNAT Center off of Harford Road in Baltimore, Maryland. Small event, but it was very nice. We had some African drummers, had some people speaking about, self-destruction and stopping the violence. Your son actually made a powerful presentation. I'm gonna give you that video in a few about what unity means. And we also had some Black vendors out there selling products. We had Divas on call. This lady, she does grows her own vegetables and stuff like that, and she creates powerful, healthy meals. And we had a brother, Messiah Fitz, selling Black-owned pie company. So it was very powerful. And next we have a Juneteenth event. So hopefully people in the Baltimore, DC area, or Delaware, Philly, if you can come through. We're gonna have fireworks at the end, Black vendors. So just come out, support Black-owned, and be a part of a powerful event.
I heard that the event at TNAT was fire. My son came back, he gave me a full report, Brother Everett. And he said it was beautiful.
Awesome.
I don't know if he told you or shared this with you, but he has the UNIA symbol tattooed on his left arm.
What?
And
yes, you never even told me that.
Yes, and so he's a huge fan of just the organization. And their ideology and the things that the UNIA accomplished, over the years. And a lot of people think that the UNIA doesn't exist anymore. And I tell folks, the UNIA is still very active, in the community. And you brought the chapter to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you reached out and you told me, I said, brother Everett, I don't know if I want to commit just yet, because when I commit to something,
you got to be all in.
I got to be all in, and I'm not going to commit and then kind of half do it and not be, when I go in, I want to go in all the way. And so, but I am looking to join the UNIA chapter here in Baltimore, and I'm just looking forward to seeing and being a part of the different things that you're doing. We're definitely going to be at the Juneteenth festival. I know that there's another one going on in Delaware.
Okay.
And so we were thinking about shooting up there. And then I said, no, it's Baltimore, Delaware. I said, we got to go with the home team.
Right.
So
awesome.
we'll definitely be with you on Juneteenth. So family, as you are coming in, share the show. Tonight, the R.E.A.D Book Club will be discussing Chapter 4 of Birth of a White Nation, The Invention of White People and its relevance today by Dr. Jacqueline Battalora. Family, we're in Chapter 4. Brother Everett, can you believe it? Like it feels like it flew, reading this book, it flew. But this book, family, as you can see, it's a thin book. It's not a lot of, it's only about 108 pages, but it's packed with a lot of information. It reminds me sort of, and I don't mean to get biblical. You all know I grew up in a church, but in the Bible, they had the book of James, which is like 5 chapters. But in the book, you learned a lot of things, in the book of James. And so that's what this reminds me of. It also reminds me of like Dr. Akbar's books, Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery. That book was only 68 pages, but the amount of information in it was tremendous. And so, family, tonight, we're going to be discussing Chapter 4 of Birth of a White Nation. Even if you don't have the book and haven't read the chapter, still listen to the discussion, because you're going to learn a lot. I know I learned a lot in Chapter 4. So in Chapter 4, and let me turn to it. We're on page 69. Chapter 4, Contingent Whites and In-Between People, Mexicans and Irish in the U.S. So, Brother Everett, I want you to spark it off, King. Tell me, what were your thoughts about, the first couple of pages, in this chapter?
Just the knowledge and information that maybe I was naive, but I was just ignorant to the fact of this information of how they used to call Irish, like they consider Irish like poor Black people and look down on them. And the whole thing about, how Mexicans were considered white, how that came about, which is really powerful. Learning about the war, and you probably can educate me and help me out, Dr. Maat. The war was it between the Mexicans and the colony.
Yep, the Mexican American War that took place.
And how how they lost, but because they wanted the land and everything, they kind of created this term to allow them to be considered white, and then they stripped them of the power. That's crazy, isn't it?
But is it? I'm glad you mentioned that, because Brother Everett, when I read that part in the chapter, that okay, they went to war with the Mexicans. They took their land. I think it's like the northern part. I have to go back and look. It says they had to cede 1/3. Mexico was forced to cede 1/3 of its territory, the northern part, to the United States for a sum of $15 million. So basically, they were bullied into selling their land for $15 million. It says this vast expanse of land includes what are now the states of California, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Texas, and part of Colorado, and encompass some 100,000 Mexican citizens, including a variety of native tribes such as the Navajo, Apache. I'm probably butchering all of these. Navajo, Apache, Pueblo, and Comanche. I probably butchered those names, family. but nonetheless, like you said, and I'm glad that you said it, and that's why I got excited. They made this treaty with them, right? So after they took the land, gave them some money. Oh, we'll make you whites. We'll include you. We'll allow you to naturalize into our, to assimilate it. And then they took it back from them. But isn't that? And I don't mean to be nasty when I say this, but isn't that how they operate typically? It's like with no honor. So you sit down. You all came to an agreement, and they held up their end of the bargain. Right. They held up their end of the bargain, and then there was just no honor. It's never any honor with them, and I remember, and shout out to Brother Asar Imhotep. He talked about how you can determine the character of a race by just looking at their history, and just the character of them. And so it seems like that has always been their character, right? To just not be honorable, not be honorable. So anyway, like you said, Brother Everett, they give them the land, they come to this agreement, and then they took it back. So we're going to make you whites, or we're going to declare that you're white through the Treaty of, what is it called? Guadalupe Hidalgo. Guadalupe, the Treaty of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. And so they said, we'll make you whites based on, this treaty. But Brother Everett, could you explain to the people, how did they take it back from them?
Well, again, which makes this so powerful, the book so powerful, they start talking about the laws. It always goes back to the law. So the treaty was like, if you're Mexican and you're like, say, New Mexico, you can keep your land, you can keep all of that. And then they like, okay, we just going to laws or whatever the case may be. And the next thing you know, the Mexicans don't have the land. Everything kept being changed. They would instill something or change something. And they use that law, that book, and that, the law of the land to just change everything at the drop of a dime. I can only imagine being a Mexican thinking you own land and you can do this and do that. And then the next thing you know, they like, no, you don't own it. You're not entitled to this. I think one of the major laws that they changed was that you can inherit the land from your ancestors. So if I was Mexican and my dad had the land, I would get it. And then they naturally said, no, that's not in effect anymore. So now,
how do you do that? How do you do that?
The land that I'm living on, that my father gave me, that you said I can have, all of a sudden you just take it from me. Now I don't have any land. I don't have anywhere to go. My family's in shambles. Crazy. And that's, like you say, the way they use the law is still kind of how they use the law now. And it's just shocking. This book is powerful. It's just powerful how they go about it.
Yes. And like you said, I mean, how do you do that? How do you, land that's been in someone's family, for generations, you just take it and say, nah, we changing this. This is right. This is not what we're going to do. And and so, and it was, I mean, that was very eye-opening for me. And immediately, of course, me being, an African in America, I started thinking about our ancestors and all of the land that they took from us. Yeah. So, I know my heart goes out to the Native Americans or whatever, but I started thinking about us like, damn, they did us the same way. You know, they took, that's what they did to our ancestors, you know, stripped them of their land, you know, and even more than that, if we really get into it. But then I noticed too that, again, she mentioned in this particular chapter that with the Mexicans, I think she says, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but remember they created a law that said that if you were black, you know, you couldn't testify against white people. Yes. And then, you know, they did it for the Chinese. And I'm learning that it also was applied to the Mexicans, you know, that they couldn't testify against white folks. And even going back to the land, I just want to circle back to that. They said that some of the Mexicans, you know, would have their daughters marry white men just so that they could keep the land. Isn't that bananas?
That's crazy. That shocked me out too, that you're going to sit here and be like, they were training their daughters and being like, this is what you're going to have to do so we can obtain land in America and keep us stuck. Marry a white person is just like, I can't imagine myself telling my daughter that for the perseverance of land. That's deep and powerful in its own right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she talked about how when the Mexicans started coming over, how they, became, you know, I guess a part of the United States, that they began to get blamed for all of the labor problems, you know, the labor issues. And I love on page 75, where she says, you know, this is a pattern that we've seen before. She said, focus upon a not white, or in this case, a not fully white group as the cause of labor problems, rather than the social structures that condition the problems and the capitalists who control the conditions and the wages of labor. So the Mexicans were always the fall guy, but that's what white folks do. They always come up with the fall guy. You know, like the Mexicans get blamed for things. Black people, we get blamed from things. You know, they never blame, you know, the structure or the system. It's always, you know, a minority group that is, you know, blamed for the different problems.
Do you have a man?
Oh, I don't know what that was, Mr. Look, brother Everett. I don't know what that was, but it seems like, you know, there's always like a fall group, and there's always, you know, some sort of minority. Let me unmute you now. There's always some minority group that gets blamed for the problems, you know, and in particular, like the labor problems, even with crime, you know, in America, they're blaming on black folks, you know, it's a crime problem and it's the black people. So they always blame other minority groups for the different issues that exist, instead of us looking at the system that creates these issues. Right. And so what do you want to say to that, Brother Everett?
I think you hit it on it when you were talking about the wages. They talk a lot about that. And you mentioned something that was very powerful, how they blamed the Mexicans for a lot of the issues. And that stumbles all the way back to how they deal with black people. If you think about it, they're always blaming us for the job issues. You know, they start talking about it. They were blaming us. I think she mentioned that how, you know, it fell onto black people, how we would get blamed for maybe lower jobs and you know, the jobs availability and things of that nature, you know, saying that there was a couple of free black slaves and stuff like that. I mean, free black people that were getting free. So it's just powerful in its own right, how she just breaks down everything and just always brings it back to the laws. But also they pointed out the wages a lot. She really talks like you said about the wages and how, you know, they would change the laws again to dictate who would get paid what by your ethnicity. You know what I'm saying? If you're Mexican, you'll be able to. I think she mentioned, it might have been on 75, that they would have a couple of dollars to maintain themselves or whatever the case may be. So I don't want to go too far when they start talking about the Irish, but that is very important about the wages and how they're starting to pay free people, because as black people starting to be free or run away or be free up in the north a little bit, those challenges, those challenges make them identify black people as the problem while their wages are low. And if we can be above them, we'll be all right. I just just put them down low, make sure that they're lower than us, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, and let me just circle back one more time to the land grants. I'm on page 73. Where she says that the American legal system became an instrument by which Mexicans lost their land and were displaced. And it says the U.S. land owning system is based upon legal title. In this system, land is individually owned and can be subdivided and sold without regard to heirs. It says the Mexican system, which you were talking about earlier, Brother Everett, you said it's rooted in tradition and considered patrimony, residing ownership within family ties, not individuals, right? But it says, in addition, it included communal land grants that provided rights of use, such as for grazing or farming. These later grants were not recognized under U.S. laws, and the lands were simply taken and sold to white speculators and businessmen. But you know what I thought about there, Brother Everett? I thought about the Berlin Conference. Remember how Africa was divided up amongst different Europeans? The British took this part, the French took this part, and somebody else took this part right at the Berlin, I think it was called the Race for Africa or something like that. Yeah. But it was at the Berlin Conference in the 1800s where they split up Africa amongst European people. And so that's what they've always had a history of doing, going somewhere, taking someone's land, and then creating a bunch of laws on somebody else's land, telling them what you can do and what you can't do, Right, and so I just wanted to kind of mention that I also thought about that as well. Moving forward, she says that again that the marriage between Mexican women and white men, it served the economic interest of white men at the end of the day. That's what it did. White men, they were able to get a hold of land, and then she even said it was like vagabond white men. Like these weren't even white males that had anything going on. Right. These were like the poor white trash, that these Mexican women were marrying, and in order to hold on to their land. But it says that a researcher says, according to Horace Bell, it was largely Mexican daughters of well-off families who married good-looking but lazy vagabond Americans whose object of marriage seems to have been to get rich without having to work. Many of these women were brought to ruin as a result of marrying those white men. And so I just kind of wanted to point that out. These weren't even, these were poor white trash men that the Mexican women were marrying.
And and to piggyback off of that, page 73, one thing I did want to say, Dr. Maat, is that I had highlighted was that she did mention that, these Mexicans were supposed to be free and everything, but it started with them being lynched as well. They were lynching them, most executed by mobs. So, it's just being free just wasn't enough. You know what I mean? They were going to find a way, if it wasn't by law, it was going to be by a lynch mob to get rid of these people and take over. So it wasn't just the laws, that they use. They still use that inhumane lynching and disrespect. So it's that pattern just wasn't with us, but it was with us to a whole nother level of extreme. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but just the fact that you're supposed to be considered white and have your land, and just to go about that, it was crazy. You know what I mean? Do the trick. Why even do the trick?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you're breaking up some. Family in the chat, could you let me know if is it me or is Brother Everett breaking up a little bit? I think you were just breaking up a little bit on me. I'm not sure, but someone in the chat will let me know. It may be my system. Sometimes people might sound like they're breaking up on my end, and it's because my internet speed is my internet connection is weak. But I love how on page 77 she talks about T.S. Marshall's 3 components of citizenship rights: civil, political, and social. And and she said, okay, she's looking at the Mexican experience in the U.S. and she was saying that they didn't have civil, political, civil. Yeah, someone said it's Brother Everett. Yeah, it's so they said they didn't have civil, political, and social rights. That their civil, political, and social rights were violated, just like our civil, political, and social rights were violated. And she mentions at the bottom of 77 that social rights of citizenship are required for you to even exercise civil and political rights. So I love that she talked about that, and she talked about that in previous chapters of well. So she said that she ends the section with saying full inclusion in the new republic, in this new America, required being viewed as white. So when these immigrants came over here, and not even, immigrants that came over here and the ones that were already here, like the Mexicans, they took their land. If they wanted to be included in this new republic that you call America, you had to be viewed as white. And then she begins the discussion on the Irish, where she talked about the things that they did in order to be viewed as white. So she says when the Irish folks first came over here, they, like you said, Brother Everett, earlier, they were viewed as white Negroes.
Yeah.
Was it them or the Mexicans?
I think it was them. That was them. In fact, let me look at what they were called while you talking, because they were considered
white Negroes.
That was 79. White Negroes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was called white Negroes. Yeah,
white. Yeah, they were treated. They worked side by side with black folks. They lived in the same areas and were subject to the same conditions as black folks when they came over here. But something changed. And Brother Everett, could you break that down? Something changed. And what was that? So when they first, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Maat. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. I was finished with my question. I was just going to reiterate it, that when they first came over, they were okay with working with white folks. Working with black folks and living around black folks. They were even engaged in sexual relations with black folks. But could you explain to the people, Brother Everett, what changed?
Well, it was a lot changed actually, but once you start and correct me if I miss a little bit where you're going at, but what I got from a lot of the initial things that changed is that power and wanting class and not wanting to be low, not wanting to be considered, low like us. And if we're at the bottom, if I can get a little over them, I can get more resources. I can get the better jobs. I can get the better things of that nature. So it seemed like they started to separate. Plus, white America started, and she always mentions this, they always were reminding that about that Bacon's Rebellion. So how can we, make sure that they don't unify and things of that nature? But I wanted to ask you, Dr. Maat, that's why I went blank while you were speaking. If she was talking about the Whig Party, could you educate a little bit? Because I never heard of the Whig Party till this book. I never heard about it. So you never heard of it either?
I never heard of the Whig Party. All I know from the books, from reading the book, is that, this was some sort of political party that eventually was transformed into the Republican Party. Right. And I love in this particular section entitled Political Landscape, how she gave like an overview of the history of political parties. I tell my mother all the time, I say, Ma, the Democratic Party, black folks used to be a part of the Republican Party, back in when Lincoln, during the time that Lincoln was, president, the vast majority of black folks were Republicans. And it wasn't until the New Deal that Franklin Roosevelt, he offered a New Deal. Remember, he was running as the poor people's president. And so he presented this New Deal, and then black folks began converting to Democrats. But what I love in this book, Brother Everett, is how she gives us a short history, a short overview of, the American political parties and how they were rivalries right after they signed, the Constitution, and how at one point, those rivalries started with the Federalists and the Republicans. And then, the Federalists began dwindling fading after the War of 1812. And so then the Republicans, for an entire decade, they dominated, the political scene. And then later on, you had Jackson. It says against the last. So you had John Quincy Adams was running up against Adam Jackson, and the Jacksonians, all the people who supported Jackson, they became the Democratic Party, which was created by Martin Van Buren. But she also talks about how the Democrats ruled, from 1828 to 1860. And she talked about what they did, how they maintained their power. And she said one of the things they did was they appealed to immigrant laborers of the North, including the Irish, in part because the party rejected nativism, which is basically a strong opposition to, foreigners. But one thing that I thought was, I don't know, it came to me. I said, well, wait a minute, this is what they still do, right? It says that she says here, the Democratic Party appealed to immigrant laborers. This is what they still do. Whenever you hear Biden, Kamala, even Barack Obama, any of those Democratic people talk. We got to do something at the borders. We got to help the immigrants. They appeal to the immigrants, and they still do that. She also talks about how they and I have it written down. I'm looking for it right here, but I can't find my notes. But in here, she also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Everett, she mentioned how they exploited the victimization of Irish people. So
Yes.
they said, come on, we're your friends. We know you're victims. You're victims of bad wages, unfair wages. And so they exploited that, just like they do Black people today. They know that we are victims of racism. So what they say, come on over here. We're your friend.
Yeah.
Vote for us. And so they exploit us. And I just thought that it was very, I don't want to say intriguing, but it was very alarming just to see the same thing. They've been doing this thing. This is how they've been operating for, over a century now. They appeal to immigrants. And then if you're a victim of something, and they'll exploit that whole situation. So we're victims of all for the vote.
All for the vote.
They don't care about Black people being targets of racism. Biden went in office, and now I'm getting ready to get off. Biden went in office. He's been in office, right? He signed executive orders for the LGBTQ, so orders that will protect transgenders, LGBT people. He hasn't signed one executive order to protect African American people. Not one. They even just passed a law for anti-Asian hate and all of that. We haven't had one executive order signed. In fact, you know that Biden cursed out our civil rights leaders in a meeting that went viral on YouTube.
I didn't hear.
He laid the civil rights leaders out when they asked him to pass an executive order that protects Black people in America. In America, he laid our people out. Biden got on there. Family, if you don't believe me, go to YouTube, type in Joe Biden civil rights leaders leaked meeting or something like that. He laid them out. He said, I'm not going to do this. He telling all of them what he's going to do and what he ain't going to do for Black people. But you know what, Brother Everett? I blame us because you had folks who were I'm talking about on social media, in our families. We're like, look, we got it. We can't just simply go out here and vote for Biden. We need to demand something from him. We need to create an agenda, and we need to hold his feet to the fire before we give him our vote. But you know what the other Black folks said? Oh, I just want to get Trump out of office. I want to get Trump out of office. And so everyone was so concerned with getting Trump out of office that they made no demands. They didn't give Biden any demands. They didn't say, well, look, if you want the Black vote, man, this is what you have to do for us. And we don't do that. We don't treat voting like what does Dr. Claude Anderson call it? Quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo. We don't treat it like that. We just give people our votes and say here, and then later on we say, can you do something for me? No, family. What we're supposed to do is create an agenda, present that agenda to those different candidates, and whoever bites on the agenda, then that's the candidate that we support. But Black folks were so busy following behind white folks, and Brother Everett, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We follow behind white folks as much as Black folks say that they don't like. And see, I'm losing folks dropping off now. It's dr.maat talking about Black folks following white people, but that's what we do. White people kept saying, we just want them out. We just want them out. So then you started hearing Black people say, we just want Trump out. We just want Trump out, and made him basically the scapegoat of racism. But here it is. You put Kamala and Biden in office. Biden's not signing anything and doing anything on behalf of you. And then Kamala, the one that people's running around saying she's the first Black president, all this bull crap. She got on an interview with Good Morning America. She did an interview with Good Morning America a week ago and said, America's not a racist country.
Oh, my goodness.
That's what Kamala said.
And like you said, quid pro quo, that means you get something in return for your vote. For people that don't know, it's a political term. So if you vote for me, in return for you voting for me, I'm supposed to address your needs and give you something back. That's politics. So we don't address that. And I believe she said, I'm not going to do anything specifically for Black people. I'll do something to change the laws that will affect all of America. Well, then why am I voting for you? Because I need something that specifically affect our community, me
Right.
personally, my family, the people I live around, Black businesses. You need to do something specifically for us because we're down and we want to catch up with everybody else. That's very important. So when we vote, and I stress this to everybody, quid pro quo, your local government, whoever, don't just vote just because you voting for a brother. That brother has to come back and say, I'm gonna do something for my community, your community, the people that voted for me. And we don't do that. White people expect that in return. The Jewish community, when they go and put their vote in, they know you better come back and represent our community. And we got to stand strong on our pride and start taking the hits and say, when I vote for you, I demand something in return, or you can't get our vote. And once we start doing that, I think a lot of our issues will change. Well, not a lot, but we'll start making more political power. But right now, we're not demanding anything. They're using us and our emotions for our vote. I'm glad you said that. That was, and that's something she's like when she's talking about this in the book. I never thought she would even bring this up. I never thought that this would come up. Now I'm learning that it was a Whig party and things of that nature. Just pure powerful. I see you got a little emotional. Did the book's that powerful to you? Because you when you got on, you was like, you ready? And I was like, yeah. This chapter was this book is more powerful than I ever imagined. I'm not gonna lie. I'm glad.
Yeah, same here. No, same here. And brother, I'm on page 81. Okay. At towards the bottom, I'm in the middle paragraph where after she says that the Democratic Party appealed to immigrant laborers, she starts talking about, she says, I have a start right here. The Democratic Party also offered something all American for the Irish to utilize and claim: white supremacy. White unity promulgated by the Democratic Party helped to silence questions about the qualifications of the Irish for citizenship because their allegiance to the party asserted the Irish as white. So that was one of the ways that they became considered white. They aligned themselves with the Democratic Party and they refused to work side by side with Black folks. They said, I need to separate myself from Black folks.
So I can grow up.
So I can grow up, exactly. So I can come up. And that's why Dr. John Henry Clark says, we have no friends. What Black folks kill me when they want to be happy. Oh, you see that everybody came out, whites and Hispanics, and everybody came out to the protest. Dr. John Henry Clark said, we don't have any friends. And you clearly see with the Irish that when they got an opportunity, so when they first came here, they were right there with us. They were laboring with us. They were, living in the same communities with us, same conditions with us. But when they saw an opportunity to come up, they said, okay, no, we're going to have to separate ourselves from these Negroes and we're going to have to grow. And so that was one thing that was interesting. But another thing, she said the Democratic Party promoted white unity. They always promoted white unity. And I don't think, Brother Everett, that changed so much. I mean, I'm not saying that they go out here and promote, but they still maintain white supremacy. They're not doing anything to dismantle it. That's why they never passed laws. Even when Barack was in office, and you had Trayvon Martin who was murdered and different people being murdered during his administration, they never passed laws that classified these murders as hate crimes, just like Biden, hasn't passed or hasn't signed an executive order to classify these murders, right? These public lynchings, or these 2021 lynchings or 21st century lynchings as hate crimes. And so the underlying ideology of the Democratic Party, of both parties, is still white supremacy. Dr. Amos Wilson tells us in Blueprint for Black Power that both of these parties are two wings on the same plane. So I tell folks, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. They want to maintain white supremacy, and they'll use a mixed mulatto face like Barack Obama to sell it to you to maintain it. They'll put Kamala, who's Asian and something else, whatever she is. They'll put these people in office, but you got to remember, these are mulatto or mixed faces still on a white power structure, and that structure is in place to maintain white supremacy. Brother Everett, do you want to add to that, brother?
You was flowing, my sister. It's powerful. What they do is, no matter what problems happen in this country, no matter how much they beef, they put their race first. And the UNIACL, we always say race first. We got to start, and our family is our race. We are all family. So we got to start putting ourselves first. These are the philosophies of Marcus Garvey, We got to start putting ourselves first so we can be at the table with them. We can't be bargaining with them while they got all the power and we have nothing. And we sitting up here like, yes, we're going to do for each other. They're not doing for each other. They're giving you a little bit of the plate and they got the whole dinner table. You know what I'm saying? And we only getting a little bit. So we got to start putting ourselves first, man. And so, yeah, you was just flowing, my sister. You was flowing.
Yeah, well, we do. We gotta. You said it right, brother Everett. We gotta think race first. And one thing that I don't like is when folks think that because you think of your race first that you hate other people. And I had to bring Baba Emotep. Shout out to PLM. But Baba Emotep came on this platform and we had a discussion about what does race first look like. What is that concept? What are the principles? What should be the guiding principles of putting our race first? But a lot of people will think that, oh, just because you're a race first person or has a race first mentality that you hate other people,
right,
or you don't like other people. No, it's not about that. Like you said, it's about putting our needs and wants and our interests before other people. Other groups of people move like that.
Right.
Other groups of people move like that. They put their needs and their desires and their interests first. And you got black folks sitting around here just trying to unite with, oh, the Hispanic brothers, this is our brother, this is my brother, this is my friend. No, we need to be thinking, like you said, brother Everett, as race first people.
Yes. It's like somebody was telling me, they said, brother, you're a little extreme. I'm like, wait a minute. If I tell another black brother not to kill another black brother, that's race first. If I say go and support your black owned businesses and build businesses that are and put black owned businesses in the black community so we can see more than entrepreneurs that are drug dealers, that's called race first. So we got to be race first. We got to put ourselves forward. No one else is. Stop reaching out for a handout and let's put each other first. That's not, being a racist. That's being proactive and succeeding and trying to survive. And yes, if people feel offended by that, I don't know why. They feel like, I don't want to get into the religion part of it, but sometimes I think the Christianity part of it, of loving each other and, loving your oppressor and things of that nature. And this is just my opinion, but I think that has a lot to do with it, instead of saying, man, like Malcolm said, the we sick thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be cool with the mass. I'm trying to run away from here. You talking about we sick because you in the house. Until we change that mentality, it is what it is.
Isn't that crazy, brother Everett, that the same, plantation personalities, the same personalities that existed on the plantation exist right here in 2021. You got folks like us, the Maroons, we the rebels, we need to be doing this. We running away from the hills, we trying to separate. Then you got the black folks that's like, what? I ain't going nowhere. I'm an American. I love it right here. I'm making six figures. I had a buddy, I got into an argument over this. I make six figures and I live in a house. I live better than, and I said, brother. He considered himself a high value man. And I said, brother, in America, in this so-called land, in this land that we call America, no black person is high valued. You don't have any power. You don't control any resources. You don't own and control any institutions. So you think you have value because you make six figures? Miss me with that. Miss me with people posting about Jay-Z becoming a billionaire or Kanye West becoming a billionaire. Miss me with that. Because at the end of the day, even though they are bosses, they still have bosses. Yes. Don't think that they don't.
Right.
They don't think. Look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z and Beyonce. Beyonce had to release Black is King. Where? Who distributed Black is King? Disney.
Was it Disney? Yeah.
Disney. So you would say, well, wait a minute. You and your husband are worth over $1 billion. Surely you can distribute your own products, right? Because at the end of the day, her musical is a product. You still can't. You still don't even distribute your own product. You still going to Disney. Look at Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry, even though I think he's either worth $1 billion now, and I think I did see something about him being worth $1 billion or close to it. Even with the nice studio that he has down in Atlanta, Georgia, Tyler Perry still has to go to a network, BET, which is no longer Black owned and operated, to distribute his product. So with all of the money, that they have, with all of the money, look who is still in control of distributing their products.
Yes. And you know what, Dr. Maat on 82, I wanted to say this before I forget. When and for a lot of people that may not know how low the Irish was compared to black people when they talking about why they preferred the Irish over the blacks. It says, while Irish workers were employed on the docks, the niggers are worth too much to be risked here. If the paddies are knocked overboard or get their backs broke, nobody's losing anything. So they had no regard, or their value wasn't even as much as blacks, because we was held free labor. You know what I'm saying? We were kind of property. So they really didn't really have any value for them. They got the low paying jobs, or they was pretty much considered just like us, but free blacks and worth anything. So again, and when you asked that question, I wanted you to go into the Whig and that political party, because that's how they changed. That's how they moved up. They attached to political parties to get any better beneficial treatment over black people, so they wouldn't be the lower class, at least not as low as us. And it's just crazy. That makes you sick in the stomach. I wonder how many white Irish today that are racist know how they were thought and how they were treated back then. Maybe that they would have a different outlook. Probably not, but maybe.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right, and that's what they did. They aligned themselves with political party, which was the Democrats. Says on page 83 that they started voting as a block, and then that's sad because black people don't even do that anymore. Remember, back in the day, we voted as a block. Now you got some black folks, and even though majority of black people still do vote Democrat, but we did used to vote in blocks. Everyone knew, okay, we're going to vote for this person. But now you have black folks like, well, I don't know. I want to vote Republican, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And so our biggest issue, Brother Everett, is the disunity and the disorganization. We're not going to get anywhere while we are separated and unorganized. We're not going to get anywhere. So we need to unify. We need to unify, and we need to organize. Yeah. That's what we need to do. Unify and organize and create our own damn political party. Even if the candidate, our political candidate ain't going to make it, but at least, start with a party and then shop our votes. It's 48 million black people in America. Let's start our own party and shop our votes. Go to these different candidates. So we'll have our candidate, of course. And if our candidate has can make it, then we'll back that candidate. But if not, we go to the different candidates and we say, look, we got 40 million votes right here. This is what we want, to happen. Not only do we have 48 million votes, we also have a check. We have a check right here, and we're going to support your campaign, with $100 million or $200 million, and that's just black folks, 100 million maybe, and here you go, and this is what we need you to pass. Those are the conversations we need, instead of the hoping and the begging, like you said, Brother Everett, begging for a seat at the table. So anyway, moving to the last section of the call to abolition, it said that in 1841, 60,000 Irish addressed, they put out an address. It says they issued an address in 1841 to North America to join with the abolitionists and oppose slavery. And as soon as they did that, you had other Irish people coming out the woodworks saying, no, we don't oppose slavery. Well, they said, I'm not a fan of it. But it's an institution that was here before we were here, so we don't want to get involved. And that again goes back to what Dr. John Henry Clarke has said for many years, that black people don't have any friends. Do you want to add to that, Brother Everett?
No, you had mentioned it earlier. You was flown, but this is the part where they say we can't look upon the blacks as their brethren. And it just seems like throughout history, as you see it, that all the way, I guess, to the days of Kemet, how they stole from us, used us, and took from us at the same time. And even in this country, how we unite with fellow people that are on the same level as us, and they say, man, we're gonna go ahead and try to be a part of this whiteness, because we're going to advance ourselves. Not only do they move forward, they start torturing us as well and kicking us while we're down. It's tough. Makes you feel proud to be black because of how strong we are. But like you was flowing, you need to give yourself the DJ horn for that, the way you was flowing, because unity is a must right now. We don't have time to be out here fighting with each other or calling each other out or having division. We just got to be about the work of unification and uplifting our people. And if we can do that, we'll be okay. But right now, like you say, we can't be up here trying to, be with the enemy and thinking that we're going to get a lot out of it when we can't even get together ourselves. We're not going anywhere. We're just pretty much fulfilling their needs of getting their agenda across, but no Black agenda whatsoever.
No Black agenda whatsoever. I want to end the discussion with another concept that she mentioned in this chapter, manifest destiny. And she says that manifest destiny is a religious doctrine with Puritan roots that holds that the U.S. reflects the chosen people predestined for salvation. And so that whole idea, of manifest destiny, the destiny to overspread the whole North American continent with an immense, democratic population, and that white America would spread democracy and freedom to lesser people in the process. And so it really reminded me of the Portuguese when they came into West Africa and how they came, with their Catholicism, and they wanted to convert. They kept saying they wanted to Christianize, or at that time, they were Catholics, but they wanted to convert us, to them. It's kind of like, I'm coming here to save you. Right. That whole idea. This is manifest destiny. I'm going to come and save you. This is my purpose, to come take possession of your land and convert you. And how they did that, with the Portuguese. And then you find, them doing the same thing really here in America with the Native Americans, that whole idea of manifest destiny. I'm going to spread democracy. Like what? Like, who the hell are you to go to another country, right, and tell people that they need to be democratic, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, right. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you to go to another person's country and say, you need to be a Democrat, or you need to be Christian? But this is what white folks do. This is what they have been doing. Yes. For so long. Yeah, democracy and freedom. And then when you look at the U.S., you're saying, well, hold on, wait a minute. Look how you all treat, the so-called Black people over there. And you running over here telling us, how to conduct ourselves, how to conduct our government, how to govern our people. But look at all the issues that you have. So what are your thoughts, Brother Everett, on manifest destiny as we wrap up?
Powerful. Just that last part, right as she closed the chapter, she says the experience of Mexicans in the U.S. after the Mexican-American War and that of Irish Catholics reveals not only the value that being white had to come to represent, but the struggle to control the determination of those who were really white. We see through these groups that Mexicans were excluded from whiteness at the local level, despite federal law, and that Irish were included through the exercise of white supremacy at the local level by the virtue of political allegiance. Just the whole chapter was just deep. You know what I'm saying? For her to just end it like that and becoming really white was fought out in the muddy waters of labor competition between and among laborers. So it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And we're still going through it today, just trying to get a job, putting black, white, and whatever you are on your application. You know what I'm saying? It's still there. We just don't think about it as much.
But you didn't answer my question, Brother Everett. I said, what are your thoughts on manifest destiny? The idea of, how white folks were going around, they wanted to spread Christianity. Now it's instead of Christianity, now it's democracy and freedom. So they had this whole idea of manifest destiny. So I was asking you about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did hear that. My bad. I was just, I wanted to get that point across. Okay, my point is, and I don't want to offend anybody, but, we just got to really do our research and study, have to learn our history, learn ourselves, and then we'll find out that their agenda and what they're pushing across really isn't for us. That religious part of it, like you say, now going into the, political part of it and things of that nature. What's going to benefit Black people as a unit, as us collectively? And then we can look at it. Don't tell me to join into what you're doing or what you're preaching, because at the end of the day, again, they say race first. Everything involved with them is to keep them controlling resources. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Claude Anderson, and we did Powernomics together. That's when I read Powernomics on the first book club. He talks about race, and race is actually a race not in terms of colors, but like a track race, a race for economic, political power, resources. And that's how they move. And anything that they approach us with is going to be involved in that. And like Dr. Claude Anderson says, if this was a track meet, we'd be on the bench. We wouldn't even be on the track right now. You know, we're not even competing in the race. He says, so instead of thinking of it as a color, think of it as our people trying to compete for economic resources, political power. How can we have political power when we're trying to join their feel-good agenda, so to speak? Like you say, it started with the religion part of it, the feel-good thing, and now it's going into we feel you, we understand your needs. Come join a Democratic Party, what have you. And it's kind of hard to comment on it because I'm of the level of, like you say, the research tells you that hasn't worked for us.
It hasn't at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It hasn't at all. All right, so family, join Brother Everett and I back here same time next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to discuss our last chapter of the book, Birth of a White Nation. All right, the next chapter is Seeing White and Naming Injustice. And I saw, when I actually went through it, I saw she has pictures of different lynchings that occurred, in the history of America. So Seeing White and Naming Injustice is chapter 5. And then she has an afterword. So I want to knock both of those out if we can. Chapter 5 and chapter 5 and the afterword, which is why would whites want to dismantle whiteness? And I think, this is just me personally, Brother Everett, I think that they don't want to dismantle it because they benefit from it.
Why would you?
Why would you want to dismantle a system that you benefit from? So, that's what I think that she's going to argue, but who knows? Right. All right, family. And also get your R.E.A.D Book Club t-shirts. Get your R.E.A.D Book Club t-shirts from Hockey Customs on Instagram. Let me drop Hockey Customs name in the chat. So I'm gonna put it on the screen as well. Yep, that is his logo. Yes, Hockey Customs. All right, so he's on Instagram, and if you don't have an Instagram, you can email Brother Hockey at his email address. I'll post this. I think it's at gmail.com. Yeah, this is his email address, guys. This is his email address, family. All right, so get your R.E.A.D Book Club t-shirts. We'll see you here, same place, same time next week. Peace, love, and light.